Yo, 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 Abdi here. We're going to make this fairly simple. Sigma 17-50 f2.8. Going to make this simple. Is it good enough for 2021? Alright, let's just get this out of the way. I bought this lens for a couple of specific reasons, and those reasons I will talk about that later on. But obviously, let's just talk about some of the good features about this lens. The first thing is aperture. This is a f2.8 zoom lens, essentially. So it is a faster lens as opposed to your kit lens. So again, if you're in the field of upgrading but you don't really want to spend astronomical amount in lenses, this is a good usable zoom with a fast aperture of 2.8, which is good. Why do you want to be concerned about a fast aperture? So it's good for low light capability. It's also good for if you want to create some sort of depth of field. The good thing about this lens is it does actually focus quite close, essentially. I don't know the exact figures, but I'll put that up somewhere in the corner. But it does behave almost like a macro, so you can get very close, especially if you zoom it all the way up to 50mm. I've just briefly discussed about the fast aperture. The next thing that I want to discuss about is the constant aperture as well. So essentially what this is it doesn't actually close its aperture as you zoom out. So if you are used to a kit lens, essentially what that means is that the aperture does close down as you zoom out. So if you noticed on your kit lens, as it gets slightly darker, the more you zoom out, that's because the aperture actually closes. You can actually see that on your settings that it closes from 3.5, which is a normal setting that a kit lens would have, to, I don't know, something like 6.3 or 5.3, something like that. So this again is a major plus for it, because it does actually consist of an aperture of 2.8 throughout its zoom range. Again, that's a good thing. Next thing is it's optically stabilized. Again, that's a really good, neat feature, especially on a zoom lens, to be fair. Third-party zoom lenses, they don't tend to have stabilization. They tend to be more reserved for kit lenses and very high-end lenses, essentially. So again, it's if you ran all of these really good features up, 2.8, constant aperture, optically stabilized, usable zoom capability, it brings it all into a extremely really nice appealing package. The next thing that I want to talk about that this lens is really good for is just the ergonomics of this lens. Now, it is a big lens as opposed to something like my kit lens. Let me bring that out. So here's a telephoto, medium telephoto lens, which is a kit lens essentially. For those of you guys that are wondering, I do rock a Canon M50. I do have the double kit lens bundle, which is the 15-45, which I'm using on right now, and the 55-200. So that essentially is a telephoto, and look at the size difference between the two. Clearly they're about the same length. The Sigma definitely is a lot fatter. Okay, now with that out of the way, let's have a discussion about stuff that I do not like about this particular lens, but obviously you can't get away for. The first thing is you need an adapter with that. So in this case I have a Mikey adapter. You can actually get this for £20. It's not the obtaining a adapter that's the issue, is the fact that you constantly have to use that, and it does actually get in the way. So I do have a fairly simple Zion Crane Plus gimbal. Although it can actually support the weight of both the lens and the camera, the problem is the fact that once you have the adapter on, it does actually become a very long lens. Now, all the weight tends to be at the front, and obviously the camera body itself isn't exactly heavy. It does make your lens front heavy. Now, the fact that the Crane Plus that I have, it does actually support the weight of both the camera and the lens. Problem is it doesn't actually support the size of it, essentially. So this effectively becomes a very long setup, and it can't actually balance it properly because the arm doesn't actually protrude out. So I have to essentially put my camera all the way at the back axis, and as a result you can't actually utilize some of the usable functions of the Crane Plus, which in this case I think it's the pan up and pan down. I don't know what the hell happened there. I mean, come on, it is a YouTube setup, so you do need to have some sort of practical light in the background. Let's do Gerald on purple. It is quite useful, to be honest. But yeah, where was I? Yes, the gimbal. You have to factor that in, essentially. I don't know, DJI Ronin S. It can potentially balance on that, but obviously don't hold me against that because I haven't actually tried that. But on my Zion Crane, most of the features it does actually work, but I can't use the pan up and down motion. Now with that out the way, is there any really good features that I like about this lens? Oh yeah, the focus ring. It's really short. And it has got hard stops, whereas the kit lens, it doesn't have hard stops. It just rotates throughout. So hard stops, they are useful. It is super light though. So you can actually use this with a follow focus gimbal. Essentially you can actually use that because it has got hard stops. You can set it, you can potentially do some manual focus on this. The zoom capability on that, I mean, look, if you want to use 50mm, look how long that lens becomes then, essentially. It's ridiculous. It's crazy long. It is an EFS lens only, so again, I did have to use an adapter on it. Next thing that I want to talk about, oh, toggles. You've got the autofocus and the stabilization. You can actually turn it off from the lens, which is great because again, your kit lens, especially the EFM lens, they don't actually have that useful feature. And here we are, just like that, we're actually using the Sigma 17-50 f2.8. It is exactly the same. It's still the same setting as the same composition as the previous lens that I've had fitted on, which was the Canon EFM 15-45. It is a great starter lens, so I would highly advise people, if you guys are looking into an EFM body, most of these kits tend to be super cheap and it does come in clutch when you actually need it. So the setting is exactly the same, Sigma to 17-50 at f3.5. I just want you guys to see if you guys have actually noticed any difference. It is actually kind of cropped in because the reason is because it is at 17mm, whereas this can actually go up to 15mm. I've actually got the Canon utility software here now booted up, so I'm gonna I don't want to touch the camera because I'll talk about that why later on, but I'm gonna actually change it to 2.8 right now. And there you go. This is how much more light it would actually allow into your sensor. And for those people that are actually wondering, it is a Canon M50 that I'm rocking on right now. So it is an APS-C size sensor, so you won't get a crazy amount of depth of field or crazy amount of low light capability with this camera, but it is useful. It does come in quite nice. The reason why I didn't really want to touch or move is simply because I've got the mic set up, my camera, so now you should be able to actually hear the focusing issues and the motor as well. You should be able to hear the motor. This is just a quick test just to see if you can actually hear the focusing motor doing its job. I mean, it's still picking up my face really fast. It's still picking up as if it's a native lens. I didn't see any lag, any hit and miss or anything like that. If I wave anything in front, it does pull away and then it snaps on straight away. Low light capability. Right now I have actually underexposed at the moment just to show you that I will be post editing just to bring the highlights and shadows up, but this is at ISO 100. Sun's already gone down and this is what you can actually expect. It's not bad, it's not bad. It does get a little bit heavy, especially since you have to hold the lens as opposed to the camera, so you might actually get a weird shape Stabilization, both the lens and the camera is on. It's not on enhanced. If there's anything else that you guys actually want me to talk about, please like, subscribe, comment down below as to what you think about this particular lens. If you've actually had this lens, what kind of problems you've had. Yeah, if you like this little video, please like, subscribe, and I'll see you in the next one. Peace.